Hi, Dinah Monahan here. Welcome to What the Heck's Going On? You know, I've heard the word persecution bandied about by Christians, some of whom were experiencing the natural consequences of their bad behavior, and they cried persecution. And when our persecution in this country is juxtaposed against the violent, deadly persecution in other countries, ours is a whimper compared to their sobbing. But there is now, in our current culture, a soft persecution of Christians that is gaining steam and acceptance. It is even seen as the right thing to do. And the vehicle to bring this about is the LGBTQXYZ movement, driven by the T. Gone is the idea of tolerance. There is no more, let's agree to disagree. Freedom of speech is being trampled, and it's being leveled squarely against Bible-believing Christians. Anything less than fully endorsing and embracing the lifestyle is not acceptable to the LGBTQ community. There's no, I don't accept your lifestyle, but that doesn't mean I don't like you. In this culture, if you stand on biblical principles for marriage or sexuality, you are demonized and canceled. Even if you don't directly address the homosexual issue, your belief in the Bible automatically puts you in this camp. Ask Sophia Nelson. I have experienced this firsthand, she writes, when I was the scholar in residence at Christopher Newport University in Newport News, Virginia. I proudly and openly identified as a Christian woman of color. On October 2021, I criticized DC Comics for making Superman's son bisexual, saying in a tweet, "I don't get why this is necessary." I don't. What if Christian parents of children reading comic books don't want their kids to be exposed to bisexual characters? This is being pushed on our kids. Straight away, my private tweet was brought into my public university workplace, and my Christian faith was attacked as a cover for my homophobic views. I was deemed homophobic, unsafe, and violent by an openly bisexual faculty member who then incited colleagues, university officials, and students against me. Students at my college protested and demanded I be removed from my post. And despite the fact I deleted my tweet, wanted to hold a campus forum to discuss the matter, and twice expressed regret for causing offense, I was sidelined for the remainder of my tenure and was told I would not be invited back to teach. Then there was Joe Kennedy, a former high school football coach in Bremerton, Washington, who was fired from his job in 2015 after taking a knee and praying at the 50-yard line after games. He didn't make a big deal about it, and anyone who wanted could join him. He sued his school district in a case that ultimately was decided in his favor by the U.S. Supreme Court, but at what cost to him and his family? And this just happened, as reported by the Washington Stand. The cost of following Christ just hit home in a new way for one California teacher who was fired for refusing to tell lies about biological reality or hide students' gender transitions from their parents. Jurupa Unified School District served physical education teacher Jessica Tapia, mother of 3, with a notice of unprofessional conduct for not embracing the district's new policies promoting transgender identities, and on January 31st fired her after determining it could not accommodate her religious beliefs. Or let's look at Kelvin Cochran. He was raised in extreme poverty in Shreveport, Louisiana. He had a lifelong dream of being a firefighter. He was named Atlanta Fire Chief in 2008, a position he served until 2009 when he was called to serve in the Obama administration as a fire administrator. In 2010, he returned to Atlanta, where he was unanimously confirmed and once again was made the city's fire chief. All was going well when Cochran was fired for writing a private Bible study for the men of his church. Mind you, He didn't publish it publicly. It was for his teaching of Bible study. What was so offensive that it warranted ending his stellar career? He wrote this, which of course is from the Bible. Uncleanliness, whatever is opposite of purity, including sodomy, homosexuality, lesbianism, pederasty, bestiality, all other forms of sexual perversion. And this, men refuse to give in, so they pursue sexual fulfillment through multiple partners with the opposite sex, the same sex, and sex outside of marriage, and many other vile, vulgar, and inappropriate ways to defile their body, temple, and dishonor God. Less than half of a page in a 160-page unpublished book. I'm happy to say that he sued, and the city of Atlanta had to pay him $1.2 million. Well, that's all well and good. What happens in a few more years when woke justices are named to the Supreme Court? The settlements will look very different. In the meantime, the culture continues like a juggernaut careening downhill with the hatred for Christians and what they stand for greasing the rails. This next piece is so shocking, it's worthy of Russia or China. An internal memo produced by the FBI's Richmond, Virginia field office on January 23, 2023 was leaked. The document is titled, listen to this, Interest of Racially or Ethnically Motivated Violent Extremists in Radical Traditionalist Catholic Ideology almost certainly presents new mitigation opportunities. First of all, mitigation opportunities is very strange, ominous wording. One blogger explained it this way. Mitigation is a dry, mechanical, bureaucratic euphemism for permanently taking you off the chessboard. That's how they mitigate you. Yahoo! Let's take this opportunity to go out and get us some Latin Mass-loving Catholics. The document notes claim that it defines radical traditionalist Catholic ideology as a rejection of the Second Vatican Council and a disdain for popes elected since Vatican II. That memo identifies radical traditionalist Catholics as potential racially or ethnically motivated violent extremists. Listen to that. Yep. Every day we hear of traditional Catholics leaving church, riled up by the Latin Mass, and bombing and looting and burning our cities. Oh wait, that was Antifa, who by the way is not listed as domestic terrorists. So why single out traditional Catholics, whose most controversial stand is that they love the Mass in Latin? Because they are staunchly pro-life and pro-traditional marriage. This poison is rampant throughout the federal government. In January, after the March for Life, a Catholic group of teens with hats that said pro-life went into a Smithsonian museum. They were told by two employees to take off their hats. They declined, saying it identified them as a group. They were berated, cussed at, and thrown out. The Smithsonian responded by apologizing, and they're facing a lawsuit. But that's not the point. We're at a place in our country where woke people feel it's their right, no, their duty, to silence, humiliate, and shut down anyone who disagrees with them. And finally, this persecution is not soft. It is blatant and terrifying. 20-plus armed FBI agents executed a raid on a pro-life family's home early on a Friday morning. Agents reportedly converged on the Houck home at 7:05 a.m. with drawn weapons to arrest regular sidewalk counselor Mark Houck. Mark's wife, Ryan Marie, described the disturbing scene. They started pounding on the door and yelling at us to open up. Mrs. Houck further explained that her husband tried to calm his family before opening the door, telling the agents, "Please, I'm going to open the door, but please, my children are in the home. I have 7 babies in this house." Despite the family's cooperation, the agents continued pounding and screaming, and upon entering the home, had big, huge rifles pointed at Mark and pointed at me and kind of pointed throughout the house, Mrs. Houck explained. The kids were all just screaming. Ryan Marie said of the incident, it was all just very scary and traumatic. I can imagine. They handcuffed and arrested Mark. What had he done? Mass murder? Drug dealing? Bombing? No. The warrant stated that Mark Houck was being arrested for an incident that occurred over a year ago when he allegedly pushed a Planned Parenthood activist away from his son as the activist was verbally berating his 12-year-old boy. The charges against Mr. Houck had been dismissed by a local court as being without merit. Yeah, they dropped the charges. Yet a year later, the FBI goes after him. Since that horrible night, Mr. Houck has cleared his name in court and is back praying in front of the abortion clinics. What can we do? How do we fight this? Well, first, I would recommend that you read Eric Metaxas' book, Bonhoeffer. The parallels of Germany heading into totalitarian government and where we are now are unreal. Then we check our response, making sure that ours is rooted in love. Our natural desire is to destroy, humiliate, and hurt our opponents, and that must be laid at the cross. Otherwise, we're drinking out of the same cup as they are. Our believer's heart is first and foremost our concern in this battle, and then we stand. We make our voices heard. We march for life. We go to school board meetings. We boldly proclaim our faith in God in the public arena, like Patrick Mahomes, Kansas City Chiefs quarterback, who opened the Super Bowl with this: above all, I want to make sure I am glorifying Him. And we walk in the assurance of this scripture: the grass will fade and the flowers will wither, but the word of the Lord will last forever. Eternity is a long time, and it's our destination. It puts this whole mess in perspective.